Welcome. Come on in. Grab a seat right here by the fire. The dusk is really starting to settle in, isn't it? Well, as the light fades out there, I think it's the absolute perfect time for us to have a quiet, grounded conversation. Just you and me. Think of this explainer as a bit of a mentorship session, right here by the campfire. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating survival guide for the ordinary soul, drawing straight from chapter 128 of the Holy Power Cycle. It's this intricate lore detailing what's known as the ninth lantern of holy power. But listen, this isn't just some dusty fantasy history lesson. Far from it. It's actually a profoundly practical framework for navigating the creeping shadows and the very real moral dilemmas we all face every single day. So, let's just dive right into this.
Our source material introduces us to this figure, Naoriel. He was the very first keeper of the ninth lantern. Now, when Naoriel was asked what fuels the lantern that has absolutely no oil, he gave a response that I really want to use to anchor our entire session tonight. He said it runs on a promise that refuses to die. The text describes Naoriel not as some warrior angel battling with a flaming sword in the heavens, but as an angel who walks what they call the low road. He walks right down in the mud among survivors in ruined villages. And the core lesson here? Maintaining your inner dawn doesn't require massive reserves of strength, and it certainly doesn't require perfect circumstances. It just requires that one stubborn, unextinguished wick. It's simply a promise to yourself that you absolutely refuse to surrender your conscience. Okay, moving into section 1. Light for the low road, tools for the ordinary soul.
You know, we so often think that to fight massive, systemic corruption, we need these thundering, earth-shattering weapons of war. But the source material flips that idea completely on its head. The lore states that this holy power is so incredibly humble, it can literally fit inside a cracked chapel window or just a beggar's cup. Think about the actual art of lamp making for a second. You don't want a fire so massive that it just burns the whole house down, right? You need a contained, highly specific light. And that's exactly what the ninth lantern is. It's a tool designed to do one seemingly impossible thing. It makes hidden corruption totally visible without actually becoming corrupt itself in the process. It's there to protect the conscience of ordinary people. Witnesses, survivors, the weary, folks who just need exactly enough light to see the very next right step.
That brings us to section 2, balancing the 9 wicks, trimming your inner flame.
See, maintaining a lantern isn't just about stubbornly holding on to it. It's about really understanding its fuel and its mechanics. Think of this as the daily maintenance of your own inner flame. The text lays out 9 invisible wicks of this lantern, and they brilliantly address our deepest personal struggles. Let's walk through them. There's remembrance, which restores the dignity and the names that have been stolen. Discernment cuts right through manipulation, separating true actual guilt from a forced confession. Mercy is crucial. It prevents our pursuit of justice from just evolving into cruelty. Then we have steadfastness, which keeps us perfectly steady whether we're being showered with praise or hit with mockery. We need witness to look at and describe the darkness completely accurately. Consolation ensures our grief doesn't morph into a throne for our absolute darkest impulses. Repentance literally makes a soul difficult to possess. Fellowship takes our isolated, lonely lights and joins them together. And finally, dawn-bearing, which ensures that no defeat is ever final. Now, the text is extremely clear on this point. These aren't ranks you achieve so you can feel proud of yourself. They are medicines for very specific spiritual wounds. To keep your inner dawn burning, you have to constantly check in, trim, and adjust these elements in your everyday life.
And balancing these wicks, it's absolutely critical. Naoriel teaches that virtues left unbalanced will essentially curdle. They go bad. For example, say you have witness. You have this incredible ability to see and describe the truth perfectly, but you lack mercy. Well, you just become sharp and entirely merciless. But look at the flip side. If you are just overflowing with mercy, but you completely lack discernment, what happens? you become incredibly easily deceived by anyone who walks up with a sad story. The holy art of the lantern is all about balance. It's this exact, careful equilibrium that actually protects an ordinary soul from falling into the subtle traps set by all those external pressures around us.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, Unmasking the Demonic Crowns, Recognizing the Snare.
So who are the enemies of this small, balanced flame? In the text, they are the 72 demonic crowns of Solomon. Let's look at how they operate through the lens of our own daily struggles. Because here's the thing, these crowns do not attack with spectacular roaring monsters. Not at all. The text reveals a much more chilling truth. They rule through rearrangement. They simply take what is already inside of you and they twist it. They will rearrange your desires until being in bondage literally feels like freedom. They rearrange your fear until acting with cruelty suddenly feels completely necessary. And they twist your ambition until you start calling your own ruthless hunger your destiny. The sheer genius of the ninth lantern is how it exposes these exact psychological tactics. It doesn't fight a demon with a sword, it just quietly exposes the lie. Against a crown of lust, the lantern reveals the deep loneliness driving it. Against pride, it highlights the tiny, fragile wound right beneath the loud boast. It doesn't attack, it simply removes the deception.
All right, Section 4, The Trap of Radiant Vanity, the Golden Lamp Maker.
Let me lean in a little closer to the fire here because I want to recount a specific cautionary tale from the text. It's the story of a man named Orion Vassago, and it perfectly captures the insidious danger of losing your purpose to pride. Orion Vassago was actually the absolute finest lamp maker. He was so good that he was personally gifted the pattern of the ninth lantern by Noriel himself, meant to be used to comfort the grieving. But as kings and grand temples started demanding his incredible work, Orion started listening to the whispers of the crown of radiant vanity. He started thinking to himself, well, why should I carry borrowed light when I could be the source of the light itself? So he built this massive golden copy of the lantern, and he lined the entire inside with mirrors. But here's the catch. It didn't reveal the truth anymore, it just reflected the person holding it, making them look vastly more magnificent than they actually were. It was a stunning, beautiful falsehood. And the real tragedy? This false, blazing light literally destroyed every single moth that touched it. It was all spectacular flash and zero substance.
When Nariel finally confronted Orion about what he'd done, he simply took the true ninth lantern and placed it right beside Orion's golden, mirrored copy. The true lantern just burned softly, and the moths, they came and rested completely unharmed right on its rim. The lesson is profound. True integrity, true light, it doesn't ever need to blind people with its brilliance. It's just meant to provide warmth. It exposes the truth gently but very firmly. Vanity, on the other hand, well, vanity always consumes the vulnerable people who get drawn into its fake spectacle. Seeing this, Orion was absolutely devastated, and he broke his golden design right then and there, realizing the terrible mistake he had made.
Now, let's move to Section 5, Challenging the False Mercy, Refusing the Coward's Peace.
We really need to look at perhaps the most dangerous, most subtle manipulation covered in this entire explainer. It's something that happens all the time in the real world. When society pressures us to accept a completely fake peace, essentially demanding that we call our own cowardice compassion, the lore specifically calls this the crown of false mercy. This crown tells people that evil shouldn't actually be named because, pointing it out causes friction and discomfort. It actually demands that victims forgive their abusers before they are even safe. There's a powerful story in the text about the Maryland Valley. The people there knew for a fact that their lords were deeply corrupt, but they just smiled politely. They kept their heads down to keep the peace. They would pray for harmony while completely ignoring the innocent people rotting in the prisons. But then the lantern bearers arrived, and they didn't start a riot. They didn't burn anything down. They simply brought out the public records, and they brought forward the witnesses. When the corrupt lord tried to invoke mercy to avoid consequences, the lantern bearers delivered this absolutely devastating truth. They said, "Mercy without truth is merely darkness wearing a gentle face." Boom! True lantern integrity requires that you fully expose the wound before you can ever genuinely heal it.
And that brings us to Section 6, Guarding Your Inner Dawn, the Power of the Ordinary. So, how does all of this actually apply to you and me? How do we hold this lantern in our own lives, especially when the systems all around us feel way too massive and powerful to fight? Let's bring this lesson right back into your own hands. Consider the story of Mira. Mira wasn't a queen. She wasn't a knight or a warrior. She was literally a girl whose job was to clean the ink jars down in a scriptorium. At the time, corrupt officials were quietly altering the city archives, trying to totally erase the families who dared to resist their heavy taxation. But Mira, she just had this very ordinary habit of paying close attention. As she worked, she started keeping tiny scraps of the original, unaltered pages, and she hid them beneath the floorboards. Later, when the lantern was placed into her hands, she didn't need to raise a magical army. She just used her little hidden scraps of truth to expose the altered ink on the official ledgers. She single-handedly dismantled a massive demonic system of theft simply by being a faithful keeper of memory. And that right there, that is the true, staggering power of the ordinary soul.
And this whole journey brings us to such a beautiful realization. Unlike those demonic crowns we talked about, which constantly demand to be placed right on top of your head so they can elevate you above everybody else, the lantern is completely different. The lantern asks to be held low, right before your feet. It is fundamentally a tool of grounding. It doesn't promise to show you the entire map of the world, and it certainly doesn't offer you a throne to sit on. It simply asks you to carefully polish the glass of your own conscience, to wipe away the fog of vanity, and to let it quietly illuminate your very next step. Just the next step.
As our campfire burns down to embers tonight, I really want to leave you with a final, quiet thought to chew on. I want you to look closely at your own life. Think about the dynamics at your workplace. Think about your family relationships, or even just your own daily habits. What is one hidden shadow, maybe an uncomfortable compromise or a silence you've maintained, that you are currently calling peace? The ninth lantern teaches us a hard truth. We don't have to win every single room we walk into, but we absolutely must keep our own flame from becoming exactly like the darkness it's supposed to oppose. So take that unextinguished wick with you into the dawn. Keep it trimmed, keep it balanced, and I'll see you next time.